The desert at dawn was supposed to be quiet. Most mornings, Sergeant Elena Ruiz loved this part of her patrol, the way the sunrise spilled over the mesas in slow orange waves, the cool stillness before the heat rose, the long stretches of silence broken only by the low hum of her truck. Out here, miles from the nearest town, the world felt peaceful. But not today. Dispatch had crackled through her radio barely 10 minutes earlier. Unit 4, possible evidence of human activity off Route 19. No vehicles reported. Check it out. Human activity. Here? It made no sense. This land stretched for miles. Nothing but cliffs, sand, dry brush, and heat. Hikers avoided it. Hunters ignored it. Kids definitely didn't come out here. Yet someone, had been seen just before sunrise. Ruiz slowed her cruiser as she approached the ridge. Officer Jonah Clark followed close behind in the second vehicle, rolling to a stop beside her. He stepped out, squinting into the warming light. "Could be campers," he said. Ruiz shook her head. No campsites for 20 miles, and dispatch said whoever reported it saw the figure fall. Clark's expression darkened. Fall or get pushed? Ruiz didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed her radio. Unit 4 and 7 on foot, moving in. They climbed the slope cautiously, boots scraping against loose rock. The sun was climbing quickly now, the heat intensifying with every step. Ahead was the ridge where the caller claimed they'd seen movement. A flash of white, a collapse, and then nothing. At the top, the desert opened before them, endless, harsh, and brutally empty. Except for one thing. At first, Ruiz thought it was a pile of clothing caught on the shrubs, but then the shape shifted, just barely, and her heart lurched. "Jonah, look." Clark followed her gaze and froze. A small body lay half buried in the sand beside a cluster of cacti, completely still. So still, Ruiz feared she was too late. They sprinted. As they got closer, details formed. The small frame, the overheated skin, the shallow, ragged breaths. He was alive but fading fast. His wrists and ankles were bound with coarse rope that bit so deep it had left raw, angry marks. He was a child, a boy, and he was alone. Clark knelt first. Oh my God, he can't be older than 8. Ruiz dropped beside him, gently lifting the boy's head. His curls were matted with sand. His dark skin was streaked with dust and dried tears. His tiny chest rose and fell in weak, stuttering breaths. Hey, sweetheart," she whispered, voice trembling despite her training. "Can you hear me?" No response. She checked his pulse, thready but present. His eyelids fluttered, then squeezed shut as if even that slightest movement hurt. "Malnourished," Clark muttered. "Severely dehydrated. Whoever left him, tied him." His jaw tightened. This wasn't an accident. Ruiz raised her radio, forcing calm into her voice. "Dispatch, we have an 8-year-old male, unconscious but alive. Severe dehydration, signs of restraint. We need medical immediately." Static. Then, "Copy, Unit 4, air rescue en route, ETA 8 minutes." Clark examined the knots binding the boy's hands. "These are professional. Whoever did this knew exactly how to immobilize someone quickly." His voice shook with anger. "And they left him out here to die." Ruiz swallowed hard. The heat was rising fast. In less than an hour, temperatures would pass 100 degrees. The boy wouldn't have survived that. She reached toward the knots. "I'm going to cut him free." But at her first touch, the child jerked violently, so sudden and desperate that Clark flinched. The boy's eyes snapped open, wide with pure, paralyzing terror. They were beautiful, deep brown eyes, but full of something no 8-year-old should ever feel. Fear. He tried to scramble away, but the ropes held him fast. His breath came in panicked gasps, his body shaking as if every muscle remembered something unspeakable. "Hey, hey, hey," Ruiz said softly, raising both palms. "You're safe. We're not here to hurt you." The boy trembled harder, eyes darting wildly, searching for danger only he understood. Clark spoke gently. "We're police officers, okay? You're safe now." He pointed to his uniform. "See? Badge." But the boy's gaze didn't focus. His lips parted, cracked and dry, and he whispered one broken word. "Don't." Ruiz froze. "Don't what, sweetheart?" He blinked slowly, sand crusting his lashes. Then, in a voice so faint they barely heard it, he said, "He's coming back." Ruiz and Clark exchanged a horrified look. "Who?" Clark asked urgently. "Who's coming back?" The boy trembled, tears mixing with dust. He tried to speak, but his throat was too dry to form words. Only a shallow, terrified whimper escaped him. Ruiz reached for her canteen. "Okay, slow sips. Just try." The boy flinched at the movement, curling inward as much as the ropes allowed. Ruiz froze again, heart twisting. "Malik," he whispered. Ruiz leaned closer. "Your name is Malik?" He nodded weakly. "Malik," Ruiz said softly. "I promise, no one is going to hurt you. But we need to know. Why were you left here? Who tied you up?" His lips quivered. He stared past her, toward the jagged cliffs behind them, looking for someone, expecting someone. Then, suddenly, his body seized with fear. "He's here," Malik rasped. "He said he'd come back." Clark instinctively reached for his weapon. "Elena." "I know," Ruiz whispered. The desert fell silent, too silent. No wind, no birds, no movement, only the faint sound of Malik's terrified breathing. Ruiz scanned the ridgeline, every sense on fire. Whoever had done this might still be close, might be watching, might be waiting for them to leave so he could finish what he started. Clark spoke in a low, tight voice. "Air rescue will be here in 6 minutes." Ruiz nodded, but her hand stayed on her holster. She could feel the weight of Malik's fear like a living presence in the air. "Malik," she said, barely above a whisper. "What did he tell you?" The boy hesitated. Then, he said, "If I cry?" Ruiz braced. He'd tie up another. Ruiz's blood ran cold. Another child. Another victim. Somewhere out in the desert. Maybe right now. Before she could respond, Malik suddenly stiffened, staring at something behind them, over Ruiz's shoulder. His voice cracked in terror. "He's watching us." Ruiz and Clark spun toward the ridge, and there, silhouetted against the rising sun, stood a lone figure. Very still, very silent, watching. For a long, breathless moment, no one moved. Sergeant Elena Ruiz stared up at the ridge where the figure stood, his silhouette sharp and black against the rising sun. Heat waves shimmered around him, distorting his outline, but not enough to hide the truth. He wasn't running. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't even pretending to leave. He was simply watching. And that made him far more dangerous. Officer Jonah Clark's hand tightened around the grip of his weapon. "Elena, tell me I'm not seeing what I think I'm seeing." "You're seeing it," Ruiz whispered. Down below, Malik trembled so violently the rope fibers around his wrists quivered with him. His breaths turned sharp and shallow, almost panicked enough to choke him. He couldn't take his eyes off the silhouette. "That's him," he whispered. "That's him. Don't let him come here." His voice broke. Ruiz dropped to her knee beside him, placing a gentle but steady hand on his shoulder. "He won't get anywhere near you, Malik. Not while we're here." But even as she said it, A chilling thought crawled through her mind. Because the man wasn't behaving like a criminal who'd been caught. He was behaving like a man who'd planned every step and had more steps waiting. Clark adjusted his stance. Think he's armed? Ruiz studied the figure. He stood tall, hands at his sides, motionless. The brightening sun obscured details, but something about him, his stillness, the unnatural calm, made her skin prickle. Maybe, she murmured. Maybe not. But distance gives him the advantage, and we have a child to protect. Clark glanced at Malik. We need to move him before that chopper arrives. He's too exposed here. The helicopter would be audible long before it appeared. If the man decided to act before then, Ruiz forced her mind back into clarity. Jonah, cover us. I'll get Malik free. She reached for her utility knife. Malik recoiled violently, his body twisting away in terror. No, don't cut it. He said. Ruiz cupped his cheek, her voice soft but firm. Malik, look at me. He didn't want to. He didn't want to take his eyes off the man on the ridge, but finally, slowly, he dragged his gaze to her face. You're safe, she said again. You are safe, and the only way to keep you safe is to cut these ropes, do you understand? We're not leaving you tied here. Malik's lip trembled. What if he gets mad? Ruiz swallowed. The question pierced her. Let him, she whispered. He doesn't get to decide what happens to you anymore. Something in her voice, something strong, something unwavering, made Malik's breathing slow just a fraction. He nodded, just once. Ruiz raised the knife, but the moment the blade touched the rope around his wrists, Malik flinched and cried out, a soft, broken sound that tore at her heart. The ropes had cut deep, burning into tender skin. I know, Ruiz murmured. I know it hurts. Just a few seconds. She cut carefully, quickly. The rope finally split with a snap. Malik's arms fell weakly into his lap. His wrists were raw and swollen, deep red where the fibers had bitten into him. Clark let out a quiet curse under his breath. Ruiz moved to his ankles next. The man on the ridge shifted slightly, as if interested, watching, waiting. Elena tensed. Jonah, anything? Clark's eyes stayed locked on the ridge. Still there, still staring. Rope sliced. Malik's legs curled instinctively toward his chest the moment they were free, as if protecting himself from every direction at once. Ruiz slid her arm around him. Easy, I've got you. Malik clung to her with surprising strength. For a second, he buried his face against her vest, sobbing silently. She felt every tremor through her body. Clark called out suddenly, Elena, movement! Ruiz spun. The silhouette on the ridge was gone. Not walking, not running, just gone. The ridge was empty. Where the hell did he go? Clark demanded. Ruiz scanned every direction. The desert stretched endlessly. Rock formations, brush, shadows. A person could disappear behind any of them within seconds. He's moving low, Ruiz said. He's using the terrain. Clark swore under his breath. And we're sitting ducks. Ruiz lifted Malik into her arms. He was frighteningly light. Too light for an 8-year-old. He clutched her vest, still shaking. We're heading to the trucks, Ruiz said. Now. They moved quickly, Clark walking backward with his weapon drawn, eyes sweeping the cliffs. Malik kept his head pressed against Elena's chest, sobbing in small, frightened hiccups. Elena, wait, Clark said suddenly. Listen. Ruiz paused. Faint, distant, rhythmic. Thump, 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 thump. The helicopter. Closer now. Thank God, Clark breathed. Ruiz swallowed. Let's get to open land. They'll need space to land. They descended the ridge carefully. Malik trembled in her arms, whispering over and over, "He's here. He's here. He said he was coming back." "Not anymore," Ruiz whispered. At the bottom, Clark pointed. "There, that flat area works." Ruiz nodded and started toward it, then froze. Footprints in the sand. Fresh, leading away from the ridge, circling behind them, leading toward their trucks. Ruiz's blood turned to ice. "Elena?" Clark asked. She pointed at the tracks. Clark's face drained of color. "He's trying to cut us off." Ruiz tightened her grip on Malik. "Move. Fast." They half ran across the sand. The helicopter was closer now, louder, stronger, nearly overhead. Clark waved his arms in wide arcs. "Rescue 1, this is Unit 4. We have a child and an active threat. Repeat, active threat." Ruiz glanced back. A shadow flickered between the rocks. Closer, too close. "Jonah," she yelled. "I see him." They reached the clearing just as the helicopter swept over them in a blast of wind and sand. The pilot circled low, preparing to set down. Ruiz shielded Malik with her body as dust whipped around them. Malik screamed, thinking danger was upon them, but Ruiz held him tight. "It's okay," she shouted over the roar. "It's just the rescue team." Clark moved quickly toward the approaching helicopter, and that was when Ruiz saw something move behind the boulders. A flicker of motion, the unmistakable outline of a man crouching low. Too close to Clark. "Elena," Clark shouted, "get Malik aboard." A sharp crack echoed. A rock exploded near Clark's foot. A gunshot. Malik screamed. Ruiz dropped behind a boulder, covering the boy with her own body. Clark dove behind another. The helicopter jerked upward to avoid the gunfire, circling higher. A voice echoed across the desert. A man's voice, low and cold. "He's mine." Ruiz tightened her hold on Malik. "No," she whispered fiercely. "Not today." The gunshot had changed everything. This wasn't just a rescue. This was a chase. And the man who had tied Malik in the desert wasn't done yet. The gunshot's echo rolled across the desert like a thunderclap swallowed by heat. For a moment, everything froze. The helicopter hovering in a widening arc, dust hanging in the sunlit air, Malik trembling in Elena's arms, and Clark crouched behind a boulder with his weapon drawn. Then the desert erupted again. "Clark, you good?" Ruiz shouted, her voice nearly lost in the helicopter's roar. "Still here," he called back. "But he's armed, Elena. We can't let him pin us down." Another bullet struck the sand near Clark's cover, kicking up a violent spray of dust. The shooter wasn't just firing blindly. He had aim. He had patience. He had no fear of police. Malik clung to Ruiz with small fists twisted into her vest, his face pressed against her chest, his sobs shaking through her body. He said he'd come back," Malik whimpered. "He's not taking you," Ruiz whispered through clenched teeth. "He is not taking you." The helicopter veered away to avoid being shot, waiting for a clearer landing. Clark fired 2 warning shots toward the rocks. "Show yourself," he yelled. "Drop the weapon." A cold, distant voice drifted out from behind the stone formations. "You leave him with me. You don't understand what he did." Ruiz stiffened. What he did? But there was no world in which an 8-year-old child tied and abandoned in the desert was the villain. The voice came again, closer this time. "He's mine." Clark leaned toward Elena. "He's flanking. We need a better position." Ruiz nodded grimly. "We take Malik to the helicopter the second they drop low. Cover me." "Copy." She shifted Malik into a tighter hold. He buried his face deeper against her shoulder. "Elena," Clark murmured, eyes scanning the rocks. "He's toying with us." Ruiz saw it too. The shooter wasn't rushing. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't even trying to run. He was maneuvering, guiding them, trying to separate them from the rescue team. The helicopter pilot's voice came through her radio, crackling through static. Unit 4, we need more distance from gunfire to land. Move east. Repeat, move east to the flat. East, straight toward a long, barren stretch, and fewer places to hide. Clark grimaced. He's pushing us that way on purpose. Ruiz bit down a curse. We don't have a choice. Malik can't run. He needs medical. She lifted her radio. Rescue 1, hold position. We're moving. Cover us if you can. Copy that. Ruiz crouched behind a larger boulder and whispered to Malik, Honey, I need you to hold on tight to me. We're going to run, okay? His voice shook. He'll see us. Yes, she said, and that's why Officer Clark will protect us. Clark gave a quick nod, grim, determined. Let's go, Ruiz said. They launched into motion. Clark broke first, sprinting sideways to draw the shooter's aim. Ruiz rose from cover with Malik in her arms and bolted across the sand. Malik gasped, his tiny hands clamping around her vest straps. Heat slammed against them in waves. A bullet struck the dirt a meter from her right foot. Another whizzed past, hissing like a wasp. She didn't stop. She didn't slow. She didn't think. All she knew was run. Clark dropped to one knee mid-stride and fired 2 rounds at the shooter's last known position. The man ducked behind the stone formations, his silhouette flickering in brief glimpses. Elena, keep going, Clark yelled. I've got him pinned. Pinned? No. The man was shifting again, slipping between rocks with chilling ease. This wasn't some panicked criminal. This was someone who hunted. The helicopter circled lower, rotor blades chopping the air. We're almost there, Ruiz gasped. Malik, stay with me, sweetheart. He buried his face deeper into her neck. Then, a figure broke from the rocks, running straight toward them. Ruiz's heart seized. Jonah! Clark pivoted, raised his weapon. A shot cracked. The man dove to the side, rolling behind another boulder. He's fast, Clark yelled. He knows this terrain. The helicopter dropped lower, kicking up a storm of dust. Ruiz shielded Malik with her body as they reached the clearing. The medic inside the chopper leaned out, waving frantically. Get the kid in. Clark backed up toward them, firing in bursts, keeping the shooter at bay. Ruiz handed Malik into the medic's arms. The boy screamed, terrified to be separated even for an instant. No, don't leave me! Don't leave me! Ruiz cupped his face gently. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. The medic strapped Malik into a harness. 2 more shots rang out. Clark dove behind a rock. Elena! He shouted. He's circling behind us. Ruiz's heart hammered. She turned sharply and scanned the edge of the clearing. A shadow flickered, a glint of metal, a figure emerging. Too close. The helicopter pilot shouted through the radio, He's coming up behind you! Ruiz spun and fired, not to hit, to stop him. The bullet struck the ground at the man's feet. He halted, his face still concealed by the shadows of his hood. Malik! He growled, voice deep, raw, furious. He's mine! Ruiz stepped between him and the helicopter door. No, she said quietly. He's not. The man lifted his gun. Clark's warning shout pierced the air. Elena, move! Before she could react, the helicopter pilot swung the chopper sideways, blasting a hurricane of sand toward the shooter. The force made the man stagger backward, shielding his eyes. Go, go, go! The medic screamed. Clark fired 3 rapid shots, forcing the man deeper behind the rocks. Ruiz grabbed onto the helicopter's skid and hauled herself inside as the medic pulled her in. Clark hopped inside next, slamming the door shut. The helicopter shot upward into the blazing sky. The man below lunged forward, firing wildly, but the bullets went wide as the helicopter lifted out of range. Malik pressed himself into Ruiz's chest, sobbing uncontrollably. He said he'd come back. He said he'd come back. Ruiz held him tightly, stroking his hair as the helicopter banked east toward the hospital. He can't hurt you now, she whispered, though her own voice trembled. I promise you, Malik. You're safe. But as the desert stretched beneath them, shrinking with distance, Ruiz couldn't shake the image of that man. Calm, focused, possessive, not running in panic. He believed Malik belonged to him, and he had more than just the intention of reclaiming him. He had a plan. Clark strapped himself into the seat across from her, wiping sweat and dust from his face. His jaw was tight. That wasn't random, Elena, he said. That wasn't some stranger. I know, she replied. Malik clutched her vest like a lifeline. Ruiz looked at his terrified face. This small boy who had been left to die in the desert, and she felt the weight of a chilling realization settle like a stone in her stomach. Whoever he is, she said quietly, he's not done. And far below them, hidden among the rocks, the man watched the helicopter disappear, not with fear, not with defeat, but with patience and a promise in his eyes. Malik didn't let go of Elena's vest even after the helicopter touched down behind the regional hospital. His small fists stayed locked in the fabric as if letting go meant falling back into the desert, into the ropes, into the hands of the man who had called him mine. The med team rushed him inside immediately. He vanished behind a curtain of doctors, IV bags, and rapid instructions. Elena and Clark stood outside the pediatric trauma room, sweat and desert dust still clinging to their skin, adrenaline slowly crashing into exhaustion. Clark ran a hand through his hair. He shouldn't have survived out there. He did, Elena said quietly. And we're going to make sure he never goes through anything like that again. When the doctor finally came out, his expression softened. He's stable. Dehydration, sun exposure, rope injuries. He'll need time, but he's a strong kid. Elena exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. He asked for you, the doctor added. Both of you. Inside, Malik sat propped up against the pillows, a hospital blanket wrapped tightly around him. His eyes were heavy and bruised by fear, but when he saw Elena, he reached out his hands. She sat beside him, taking one small hand between both of hers. You're safe now, she told him softly. Malik's voice was barely a whisper. He said if I told anyone, he'd tie up another, like he tied me. Elena felt her stomach twist. Malik, who is he? Malik swallowed, eyes glistening. He said his name is Darius. Clark froze. Darius who? Malik hesitated, then answered with a trembling breath. My cousin. The words hung in the room like a shock wave. Your cousin? Elena repeated gently. Malik, why would he hurt you? Malik's lip quivered. He wiped his face with his blanket. He said I saw something I wasn't supposed to. At night. At my auntie's house. Clark leaned forward. What did you see? Malik looked up at Elena, pleading for her to promise safety one more time. You're safe, she repeated. I'm right here. Tell us. He took a shaky breath. He took someone, a boy from my school. Malik's voice broke. I saw him put the boy in his truck, and he saw me watching. Elena felt her heart drop. Clark's jaw clenched. And that's when he tied you up? Clark asked. Malik nodded. He said he had to hide me until he figured out what to do. Then he brought me to the desert. He said if anyone found me, it didn't matter, because he'd already taken the other boy. Silence swallowed the room. The truth was uglier, larger, and more urgent than they'd realized. "Elena," Clark said softly, "we have a kidnapped child out there, and a man who's willing to kill to keep him." Elena stood. "We need to move. Now." But Malik grabbed her sleeve. "He's coming," the boy whispered. "He said if I escaped, he'd come for me first." A cold weight settled in Elena's chest. She brushed Malik's curls gently. "We're not letting him anywhere near you," she said. "I promise." The manhunt began within the hour. Officers spread across the desert. Drones lifted into the air. Roadblocks went up across 4 counties. Clark coordinated ground units while Elena stayed by Malik's side. He trusted her, and she had no intention of letting him face another minute alone. By sunset, they had a lead, an abandoned storage unit 40 miles west, a place Darius had rented under a fake name. Inside, they found rope, food wrappers, and a child's shoe, the missing boy's. Elena's pulse hammered. "He's close," she muttered. "I know he's close." Then her radio crackled. "Unit 4. We found tracks near the riverbed. A child's footprints. They match the missing boy's size." "Any sign of Darius?" Clark asked. "Negative, but fresh tire marks heading north." Elena knew instantly that was their direction. The hunt intensified. They found him at dawn. The sun was just rising when a drone caught the image. A silver truck pulled off behind a ridge. Clark and Elena arrived with a tactical team. Inside the truck bed, they found the missing boy, alive, crying, tied but unharmed. But Darius was no longer there. He fled into the rocks the moment he heard sirens. For 3 hours, officers combed the desert, and then, finally, they saw him, standing on a ridge, exactly like before. But this time, he was surrounded. He dropped his weapon slowly, eyes cold, empty. "You took him," he snarled at Elena. "You stole what I needed." "Children are not yours to claim," she said sharply. "And Malik isn't yours. He never was." Darius smiled, a twisted, chilling expression. "He told you, didn't he? The little traitor." Elena's voice hardened. "You're done. It's over." Darius looked toward the helicopter landing nearby, toward the cluster of officers, and then toward the horizon, as if calculating one last chance. Clark saw it in his eyes first. "Elena!" But it was too late. Darius ran. 2 officers tackled him before he'd taken 10 steps. He hit the ground hard, fighting, kicking, but within seconds he was cuffed, pinned, and subdued. The chase was over. Later that afternoon, back at the hospital, Elena entered Malik's room with a soft smile. "It's done," she said. "He's arrested, and the boy he took is safe too." Malik let out a long, shaky breath. Tears spilled. Relief this time, not terror. You came back," he whispered. Elena sat beside him and took his small hand. "I told you," she said gently. "You're not alone. Not anymore." Clark stepped in behind her. "Your aunt is on her way. You're going home tonight." Malik nodded slowly, finally letting his shoulders relax. For the first time since they found him in the sand, he didn't look afraid. He looked like a child again, safe, protected, free. And Elena knew. That was worth every mile of desert they had crossed.